Our guest today is the Chief Executive Officer of the Chicago Public Schools. The Chicago Public Schools serve over 400,000 students in 681 schools. The Chicago Public Schools system is the third largest system in our nation. Our guest today was a teacher for more than 12 years in New York City's public school system. She taught at both the high school and elementary school levels. She holds a master's degree of science from Pace University, a master's degree of the arts from New York University, and a bachelor's degree of the arts from Long Island University. Our guest today is married and has one daughter and two beautiful twin grandsons. Ladies and gentlemen, Barbara Byrd-Bennett. Barbara?
Thank you so very much, Jay. Yeah, really beautiful grandsons. You can't meet me without having conversations about them. This morning, it is an honor to be invited to stand here behind this podium that has welcomed so many outstanding leaders from our community and leaders from society. So it is really, honestly, kind of humbling to be standing here, and I do thank you for the opportunity. I'm also pleased to see, wow, so many of you here this morning. Your presence is clearly an indication of just how much this community believes in the challenges that the children are facing, but in their schools. So I want to start this morning as a really good teacher. I've got my lesson plan laid out. And the first thing is, I'd like, because many of you do not know me, I'd like to share a little bit about who I am, what drives my choices and decisions, and those that I have made throughout my personal and professional career, and what will guide me as I move forward as the CEO of the schools. Second, I'd like to share with you what I've read, heard, observed, learned about our school system. And I will share with you what I believe are both the immediate challenges and the opportunities confronting our schools. And finally, I'd like to give you a taste of the vision moving forward for the future of our district. So let me start with the first things first. The seeds of my career in education were planted years ago in the General Grant public housing projects in Harlem, New York City. Growing up in Harlem, I faced many of the same challenges that confront our students in Chicago here today. My neighborhood was not safe. There was crime. There were drug addicts, and there were too many unemployed adults. The schools I attended were often old, outdated, and not designed to meet the needs of the children who attended those schools. And although there was evidence of poverty throughout my community, at a very early age, I knew that there was another America, just a few miles away from where I lived. And you see, I had parents who encouraged me to have a dream, to chase my dream, to capture my dream, and to live my dream. They understood that the only way that I could be a dream catcher was through education. And neither of my parents received a high school diploma, but they understood respect, human decency, hard work, and the value of education. And they're among the smartest people that I have ever known. Perhaps it was the negative reputation of the Harlem community that influenced some adults to make negative judgments about me. Some folks may have even written me off. And there were plenty of negative influence around me, and I have to tell you, now that I reflect, I really wanted to walk on the wild side sometime. But it was because of the values of my parents and what they instilled in me, and the positive, significant adults in my life, and some very special teachers in the public school I attended, that I stand before you today. I particularly remember Mrs. Murphy. She was my 9th grade economics teacher, and it was from her that I learned that education is freedom's classroom. In that classroom, I learned my national history and the public narrative about my personal history. I learned what it was to be American, and I learned that education could be an equalizer. I learned that education is our society's highest calling, and I responded to that calling nearly 40 years ago at the age of 5, when I stepped into my first classroom as a teacher in East Harlem. I became an educator by training and choice. And as a teacher, I became both a researcher and a practitioner. I was a classroom teacher for more than 10 years, a principal for 8. I led the Office of Curriculum Instruction and Professional Development for the New York City Public School System. I've been an adjunct professor at the graduate and undergraduate level. I led a non-for-profit education venture in Washington, D.C., and I've led some of our most troubled inner-city urban school systems across this country, New York City, Cleveland, and Detroit. And each of these districts, we made progress. My first superintendency was in the Crown Heights School District in Brooklyn, in New York City. And the second I led was called the Chancellor's District. And the Chancellor's District is composed of some of New York City's historically lowest performing schools. And it was the first non-geographic turnaround district in the nation. As the leader of the Chancellor's District, I provided the direction, the resources, and the supports that I knew students needed in order to be successful. I reduced class sizes, administered a managed curriculum, extended the school day and the school year, reinstated the arts, which has got to be there, reinstated the arts in, yes, just one person in love with the arts. Increased one-to-one tutoring, which so many of our children needed, and focused on improving teacher quality and principal leadership. With a deliberate commitment and the partnership of teachers, principals, the philanthropic and business community, we increased student achievement. And if I may just give you one example, I know from, and most of us know from extensive research, that the likelihood of a child's success in school and the likelihood of that child going on to college and further careers after post-secondary education happens at third grade. It's then when the predictability is very, very finite. And after only 1 year in the Chancellor's District, we decided that we needed to focus on those third grade students. Our students, when I assumed the responsibility for the district, were only achieving at grade level 31%. After 1 year, with a relentless focus on high standards, sound and meaningful accountability systems and hard work, we raised the achievement level to 46%, up 15 percentage points in 1 year. 1 year. Following my tenure in the Chancellor's District, I was recruited by the then mayor of Cleveland to serve as the first CEO of the Cleveland Municipal School District. And Cleveland, like Chicago, was the largest school district in the state and is governed by the mayor. And like Chicago, it was plagued with problems faced by so many large urban districts. By all accounts, the Cleveland school system was dysfunctional. The district had not met any of the state standards. There were no accountability systems, and apathy was pervasive. During my nearly 8 years there, and I must tell you when I first came, I came from New York, so people made bets on how long I'd be there. There were a 2-year bet, the 3-year bet, the 4 years, she'll never make a contract. So 8 years later, in Cleveland, test scores in reading and mathematics at grade 4 and 6 improved more than twice as fast as all of the other districts in the state and the state level. When I began my tenure in Cleveland, we had a general operating deficit of more than $200 million. And after 1 year, I completely eliminated the deficit, maintained a balanced budget for the remainder of my tenure. The district was then removed from the state designation of academic emergency and financial emergency. And every year after, during my tenure there, we had a clean financial audit. And finally, before arriving to Chicago, I served as the chief academic and accountability auditor for Detroit. And if you know anything about Detroit, financial challenges are also pervasive. While in Detroit, I created a 5-year academic reform plan that was aligned to the available and projected financial resources for the district. The plan was specific, focused, and aligned to national standards. And at the end of my 2 years there, the district made AYP, and our state reading scores increased in grades 4, 6, 7, and 8. In each of the urban districts where I've served, the majority of the children come to school with tremendous disadvantages. They often live in communities with inadequate healthcare services, substandard housing, under-resourced schools, and minimum support services for the children and their families. They live in neighborhoods that have their more than share of violence. But you know what I've learned? Although these children may live in poverty, they are not poor. You see, these children can and do learn, and they have the strength and the fortitude to triumph over obstacles that some of us could never even imagine. But I've learned that they triumph only if the adults in their lives don't give up on them. And right here in Chicago, I am learning those lessons again. I found amazing stories of excellence, of principals and strong partnerships and teachers in schools that are helping our children every single day to succeed despite the challenges that they face. I recently learned of Danielle Porsche. She's a principal at Caldwell Elementary in Gresham area. This is her second year as the principal of the school, and she taught there for about a decade or so. The school is 92% poverty rate, and 97% of the children are African American. And in just 2 years, Ms. Porsche and her teachers have moved that school from a level 3 to a level 2. That deserves praise. But you know what? It made me think, like, what the heck is she doing? One of her parents answered the question for me. Mrs. Porsche, this is a quote, pushes the kids to do their best. She expects nothing less, and she expects a lot from them. And then there's Cardenas Elementary in Little Village. This school has a strong partnership with the Children's Literacy Initiative, which is a national program designed to help children in reading from low-income areas. This school has a 98% poverty level, and a rate of 49% of their students are limited English proficient students. This partnership with the school is incredibly valuable, as it helps not only the students, but also their parents. And finally, there's Nicholson Technology Academy in Englewood, which has a poverty level of 96% and an ISAT composite of 82%. At Nicholson, students attend tutorials after school and on Saturdays. But what's really, really important about this after-school program is that it also involves their parents, so that their parents have the tools to support their children, and hence our 82% composite, which everybody in the school, the teachers and the principals there say, Barbara, it's just not enough. We're going to beat our last best effort. These are the pockets of excellence that inspire me, because in each instance, the adults are taking the extra steps to ensure the needs of their students and that the needs of their parents are being met. These pockets of excellence reinforce and confirm what I know. I used to believe it, but now I absolutely know it. That every child in every district that I've worked, and every child in Chicago public schools, is born with the God-given gray matter and the ability to succeed. It's up to us, the adults, to ensure that they do so. So now you know a little bit about me, and I want to get mushy, because I was getting a little filled there, but I do want to tell you about my last 30 days since I accepted the responsibility to serve as CEO of Chicago Public Schools. 30 days, but who's counting? Since that time, I've not been working and planning in a vacuum. I've read pertinent documents, I've examined the data, I've reviewed programs and materials and instructional strategies that many of our schools are using. I've listened to parents and teachers and principals and members of the faith-based community, elected officials, and business community, philanthropic community members. I've talked with students, and I have observed our students in their classrooms. I participated in the CTU contract negotiations. So, Jesse, I think you know, I got an earful about CPS, public schools. And what have I learned? Let's start with Chicago's first superintendent, John Doerr. He was appointed in 1854. I need to say that again, 1854. And listen to Superintendent Doerr's priorities. Better trained teachers, longer school year, improved facilities, and reduced class size. Those were his priorities. Those were his 4 priorities. Let me do it again. 1854. My review of all of the data indicates that we have an unacceptably high absentee and truancy rate. We have low graduation rates, and while student achievement has seen many meaningful gains over this last year in particular, too many of our students are not graduating from high school. And those that do, too many are not college and career ready. Achievement gaps for African American and Latino students are high double digits and growing. This is not acceptable, and I will not be satisfied with that until the progress in CPS closes that achievement gap for all of our children. I've learned that we have training programs for teachers and principals that are often uncoordinated, unsupported, and we play the blame game when it's convenient, and we are more of a system measured by intentions rather than performance. We've suffered through a wide variety of reforms, and we've given up on looking for best practices. I'm focused on creating cohesion, comprehensiveness in leadership development for our principals and our network chiefs. We're working with our teachers in the continued design and implementation of the Common Core state curriculum. We'll be working with CTU on quality design programs for meaningful and applicable teacher professional development. I'm incredibly fortunate to have the support of a deeply committed board. I've served under elected boards and appointed boards, and I must tell you, this board is par excellence. I could not have written a dream board up. And why? Because this board is smart, they are focused, they have children in our school system, and they understand what it takes to create vision and direction. I'm also incredibly fortunate to have an engaged community and dedicated professionals like our principals and our teachers. And I have a mayor who has made success of the schools a priority. But Chicago Public Schools have both an academic and a financial, a very, very real and imminent fiscal emergency. Due to eroding state and federal revenues, flat local revenues, and rising costs associated with health care and pensions, we are facing a daunting fiscal picture. It is a fiscal crisis that will threaten everything in our system, and I mean everything. Last year, CPS faced a $700 million deficit. This year, it is a $665 million deficit. And next year, our deficit is estimated to be at $1 billion. That's a B. When we teach phonetics, that's B, billion, $1 billion deficit. We have already cut more than $500 million from the budget since the summer of 2011. And I know we will find more savings, but we cannot cut our way out of this situation. We cannot cut our way out until it begins to negatively impact classrooms, teachers, and children. And any potential remedy for support has to start with pension reform. As many of you know, the district's statutory relief ends this year, and we will find ourselves at the edge of a pension cliff that is just 7 months away. Our pension payment will spike from $200 million to nearly $550 million. Let me be clear. There is no greater threat to our financial undoing in our district than the ballooning pension liability. Without real pension reform, our district and the 400,000 students that call it home will be pushed right off of the edge of that cliff into an abyss that leads to deep cuts in classroom and threatens any possibility for our success. I'm not here to blame one person. Where I come from, you don't do blaming. Get you in trouble. So I'm not here to blame any one person or a group for the pension mess within which we find ourselves, especially not the hardworking professionals who have dedicated their lives to the classrooms. But if we're going to honor their sacrifice, if we're going to continue the progress we're making in the classrooms, then the crisis needs to be addressed in real ways. Our conversations in Springfield must include the inequity that exists in this state when it comes to pension funding. Chicago Public Schools is currently the only district in the state required to pay the normal cost while also paying for the unfunded liability of the pension system. Let me say that again. Chicago Public Schools, we are the only district in the state required to pay the normal cost while also paying the unfunded liability of the pension system. Our state covers the cost and liability for every other district except ours. Maybe to you that sounds all right. To me, it's odd. And I've learned that last year the state spent more than $2 billion on teacher pension funds, and Chicago's share of that was less than $11 million. For our district to achieve long-term, sustained fiscal health, we must address this inequity in Springfield. I am not going to stand here and say that I have all the answers. I simply don't. But I do know that we have a Board of Education that includes some of the best and brightest people in this great city who care deeply about our children and who have the experience and the expertise to help identify solutions. But CPS will not be able to address our revenue issues on our own. We will need the help of some of our legislators in Springfield and members of Congress in Washington, and ideas and input from those of you in this very room and everyone in our communities who are committed to the district as a sustainable and supportable entity for our children. Meanwhile, I'm taking a hard look at our central office. Based on my experience, I'm convinced that we still have more opportunity to reduce costs associated with the way in which we do business there. If $1 at 125 South Clark can be spent better in our schools, you can believe that I intend to move that dollar where it belongs, in the schools for our children and our teachers and our administrators. I'm also looking to our space utilization. I know you've heard a lot about the space, let me tell you, I'm here to tell you the truth. I'm looking at our space utilization. We need to face the difficult reality about space utilization in our district. We currently have a system of school buildings designed for about 500,000 children, but we enroll slightly more than 400,000. Nearly 50% of our schools are underutilized, and nearly 140 of them are half empty. And in short, we have just too many buildings for too few students. Now, I also know that there are programs and legal requirements for which we must adjust our school building utilization formulas. And that includes with special needs students, pre-kindergarten, some of our English second language programs. I get that. But the reality is that our excess schools cause us to stretch our resources, our tiny resources right now, far too thinly. When we consolidate underutilized schools or half-empty schools, we'll be able to better invest those revenue resources across the district. Underutilized schools are also detrimental to safety for our students and for all of the adults who work in the buildings. But decisions about school consolidations cannot be made in a vacuum. Chicago Public Schools belong to the citizens and the community. And as a part of my value system, which I shared with you earlier, I believe we must ensure that the community participates in decision-making processes. The process must be open, transparent. We must listen before making any final decisions. The current state law, Senate Bill 630, requires that by December 1, the district announce all the schools identified for closures and consolidations. The intent of that law is to give communities the opportunity to respond to the district proposals. The intent of the law is our intent, but I believe we should provide every opportunity possible for community participation on the front end of that conversation, not after the district has identified its schools and promulgated its list, not on the back end. I do not believe that the December 1st deadline provides parents, teachers, and members of the community sufficient time to share their concerns and their expectations and their realities. Based on the district's history and our past actions, we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge that community simply does not trust what we say or what we do. It's very, very sad to go around Chicago and have people tell you that you're a liar and they don't like you and blah, 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 blah. Because that's what's going on. We've not been true to our community. So if we know this, then we must be inclusive and open. We need to build trust, respect, and transparency once again. We need to engage all levels of community. The members of our community deserve to be treated as authentic partners. We cannot create a vision for the next generation of Chicago's children if the community does not know or understand the vision. The community must be involved in the planning and the work that needs to be done in order to provide all of our children with a high-quality education. And this surely includes building utilization. For this very reason, I recommended to and have received the support of Mayor Rahm Emanuel and Board President David Vitale and members of the Board of Education to seek an extension of the December 1st deadline from the state legislature. The request is for an extension to March 31st of next year, and it will give us additional time needed to more rigorously and respectfully engage our communities in authentic conversations. We've been working closely, first and foremost, with the sponsors of SB 630, State Senator Iris Martinez and State Representative Cynthia Soto, to amend the legislation. And they could not be here today, but I do want to thank them for their patience, their tolerance, their understanding, and most of all, their commitment to our children. The extension we are requesting will allow the Commission on School Utilization to continue the work they started 2 weeks ago of involving our community in discussion. I created this commission to ensure the participation of parents and community leaders, public interest groups, faith leaders in making the tough decisions with the district. We don't want to make decisions for the community. The 9-member commission, which we are fortunate to have chaired by retired ComEd Chairman and CEO Frank M. Clark, includes current and former legislators, community leaders, principals, teachers, faith leaders, and district parents. And each is volunteering their time and demonstrating an outstanding commitment to the success of the children in Chicago. This commission's charge is to hold public meetings across the city and to listen and to gather community input. The information they gather will be presented to me, and it will provide needed advisement before a final recommendation to the Board of Education and decisions are made. At the end of this process, our goal will be to better position our district to have strong neighborhood schools in each community that provide our children with high-quality education that they deserve. I want to make it perfectly clear, because I've heard this, that the commission is for delay. Nope, the School Utilization Commission is not designed to delay our tough decisions. You see, a March 31st deadline does not prohibit the district from making the necessary decisions in time for implementation by next school year. It simply gives us additional time for a more open and transparent process, a process that considers multiple views and desires of parents and community members, teachers, principals, and neighborhood residents. We also want to bring stability to our parents and the school communities as a part of this process. For too many years, the district has made piecemeal decisions when it comes to school actions. Mayor Emanuel realizes that this has caused unnecessary disruption to our school community year after year. The mayor understands the impact of the continuous delays that we've had as we delay on these decisions with the community year after year. He has also made it clear, very clear, that once we execute the final comprehensive plan to address the school utilization issues, we must give our parents, our teachers, students, and members of the community a peace of mind that they deserve about stability. They should not worry each year that potentially my school building is going to close because it is underutilized. The mayor said that if our request for the extension is granted, that CPS will then implement a moratorium on all CPS facility closures for the next 5 years, and we will begin next fall. We believe that this will bring the stability that our communities need and deserve, and will allow us to devote all of the attention on the core of our work, and the core of our work is teaching and learning. And I will personally commit to ensuring that this commitment by CPS is kept. And finally, as my time ends, I would like to share a vision for the future. So I return to the general grant public housing projects in Harlem, New York, where my personal values emerged and my professional principles took root. Very generally, I believe that all of our children have gray matter and can learn, and that I hold high expectations for their success, but they need a rigorous curriculum. I believe that academic success and the well-being of our children must come first. There must be quality schools in every single neighborhood. The strength of a school system is its teachers and the support staff that work with children. They are the important resource that we must value. I understand the importance of leadership, and I support our leaders, and I will hold them accountable. Parents and community engagement and empowerment are essential in the decision-making process, and every member of the Chicago community is essential for our success. We can dramatically improve the district by balancing stability with necessary change. And we must drive that change using sound management and accountability systems for every adult employed by the district. I often joke right now, there's Barbara Byrd-Bennett, who's accountable. President Vitale saw to that with my contract. And our teachers under the REACH evaluation system. Nobody else in the system is accountable. Isn't that ironic? Oh, we're changing that. Everyone will be held accountable for the success of our children. If we honor these simple principles, they support a very basic vision. And that vision is for each student in the Chicago Public Schools to be successful in a rigorous program, and that our teachers, principals, and administrative staff will be valued, they will hold themselves responsible and accountable, and will be rewarded for their professionalism. This vision can only be realized with 6 pillars. I'm going to tease them out really quickly. I'm going back. High standards and a rigorous curriculum that prepares students for life, work, higher education, and citizenship. Effective leadership and a team of teachers and administrators committed to excellence. Every student having a safe and supportive, resource-rich learning environment. Maximize the district's financial resources through performance-based management, planning and accountability systems, authentic engagement of parents and community, and finally, to deliver the types of services and educational opportunities that meet both the academic and the non-academic needs of our students and their families. The detail for each pillar is under construction with my team right now, and when the document is finalized, you will see the very specifics under each pillar, and we will share it with the entire community, by which you can hold us accountable. With the support of the mayor and the board, we are so well positioned to develop this living document because every child in every school now has access to a full school day. Our children now have the time they need with their teachers in critical core subjects, but they also have the arts. Where's my art person? They've got the arts, which are inextricable from life. Schools have the ability to invest more time and resources for the children who need intervention and special programming and acceleration. We have a new teacher evaluation system that will provide teachers with the tools and supports they need to improve student outcomes in the classroom. We got a jump start on the adoption of the Common Core standards, which will help every one of our child to reach a higher and deeper academic standard. Principals today are more empowered than ever to make decisions in their schools, and we can better support them to better support student growth. The mayor and the members of the Board of Education and I share a vision for more than 400,000 public school students here in Chicago. Just imagine, I need everybody to just take a moment, and it's an own moment. I'm playing school again, close your eyes. We're all gonna imagine. Just imagine school buildings that are clean and safe and conducive for learning. Imagine schools where all of the children have access to advanced technologies and library enriched with books and reference materials and other media tools. Just imagine that each school in the community has a safe and attractive playground. Imagine schools filled with creative and talented teachers and caring nurses and empathetic counselors. Just imagine a school system led by strong and supportive principals where children have a joy for learning and learning is meaningful, engaging, and purposeful. And finally, imagine a large urban school district where all of the adults have suspended their disbelief and the adults are united in a vision that supports children. Can you see it? This is the vision for the next generation Chicago's children. I know if we're willing to make tough decisions and if we're willing to work together, we can get this right. This is our moment. This is not about Barbara Byrd-Bennett or any other individual. It's not about people who are opposed to each other or fighting each other. No, it's not. It's about Chicago's legacy. This city's legacy is its children. It's about moving from tired rhetoric to reality. I'm not naive. I've been around too long. And I know that there will be skeptics. There will be those who will question everyone's motives. They will wallow in the past. They will distort facts, and they will outright lie. But I will not be deterred. And right now, after my first 32 days, what I ask of you here is something very simple. I ask you to suspend your disbelief. Do not give up on our children. Give us the time that we need. Celebrate small victories. Our children are ready to succeed. It's simply up to us if they do so. And who knows, the next CEO of a large urban school district may be a child in our system, just waiting for the adults to provide the support that she needs to chase her dream and capture her dream. I thank you very much for listening to me.
We either have a lot of well-prepared guests or we have a lot of fast writers. Okay. City Club B, Brenda is over there. All right, here we go.
Okay.
This is from Erwin Brown, Cosmos Construction Group. Where are you, Erwin? Raise your hand. You made the room. Okay. Besides test scores, what other ways exist to evaluate teachers' competency?
So I think test scores are just one measure. I mean, it's actually the practice. It's observable practice. It's student engagement. It's our students coming to school, which is a part of the attendance issue. It's whether or not teachers have the kinds of resources to actively engage and the time to actively engage parents. Recently, there was a piece that we were reading. It's about teachers having access to tools, having time, and not just test scores that will measure whether or not we have success.
I forgot to mention, terse is not worse at the City Club. Some of you are obviously saw the movie Anna Karenina and you're following suit. All right. Sharon Thomas Parrott, where are you there? Parrott, where are you there? Right there. We asked this question of Karen Lewis. You've heard of her, haven't you?
Yes, I do.
You did. Karen wants to know how many of us attended Chicago Public Schools. Raise your hand. There you go. All right. And she wants to know how we can help.
I'm sorry, Karen wants to? Oh, Sharon wants to. You want to know?
I want to know.
Okay, got it.
I want them to all want to know too.
Yeah. I think that, first of all, it's been 30 days, as I said, a little over 30 days, and I do need this community to hopefully embrace our plan, give us dramatic feedback on it. We talked about the financial issues that we're facing. We need all of your voices in Springfield to help identify solutions for our funding issues. We need you, to simply, I've heard so much negativity about our children that my heart bleeds, because I just imagine that people were saying that about me. And I just hope that we could take a pause for a moment and do what's right for our kids. And lastly, there are a lot of kids out there, I know that, who are walking on the wild side, right? But we've got to figure out ways through after school, Saturday programs, night programs, to bring those children back. They want to come back. We just need to figure out how to bring them back. And we need your support in doing that.
Okay. This is from Sandra Stone. Stone, where are you, Sandra? Okay. What will you do to protect public school Head Start and preschool since they are diminishing due to school closings and school consolidation?
Well, I'm not sure if the premise is accurate. As you know, we have an early intervention strategy, our Early Childhood First program, that we're looking at the unequal distribution of preschool classes across the city. And so it's really quite lopsided, and that it's not spread evenly so that children in greatest access and need have an opportunity for preschool programs. And you have to forgive me, there is a deadline fast approaching for those applications to be submitted, and they're being reviewed and vetted by universities and experts, et cetera, to make certain that those programs go into the schools where the children are, that we're not opening preschool and Head Start programs where there aren't any children. So that's all being equalized, and that was an initiative that was started some months ago from the mayor's office, and our district is working very closely with all of our sister agencies to make that happen.
Well, Barbara, this question will let you know you're not in Detroit or Cleveland anymore. Okay. Krista, CPS parent. No last name, so you don't have to raise your hand, but if you want to raise your hand, Krista, you do it. There she is. I knew I'd stick it to you. It's a little long question, not to terse, not worse, but this has been in the news, and it's a fair question. Question regarding selective enrollment high schools. Please give your opinion regarding giving 8th grade students, well, let me make it short. The tier system, where some kids are in one tier that's more competitive than another tier. How do you make that fair to the students who work hard, but they're in the wrong, since they're the wrong tier, the competition is so great they can't get into a selective school?
It's interesting, and you're right. It's not. It's a system unlike many that I have ever experienced in this country. Two things. One, I think the fact that we have so many parents and so many children who want access to the selective enrollment schools, that it should be a resounding note playing in our heads that say, all of our parents want quality, our kids want quality. So hence, I hope you heard as a resounding theme, or I really failed, is that what we're looking at is to ensure that we have quality schools, not only our K-8, but our secondary schools. And that requires that we absolutely make significant changes in what we define as quality, how we provide access to children. We've started already, as you may know, with our IB and our STEM schools, so that accelerates the platform and increases the opportunity, and we have to get better next year at that and the year after, because when you think of it, it really shouldn't be about selective enrollment, should it? It should be about every kid having the access to the same quality.
This year, because my daughter's straight A's, perfect ISAT, and we live in the wrong tier.
Okay. And you can give my office a call, but that's what we're doing to make that happen, and you're right.
Okay. Tracy Stansel, where are you? You just broke a record, Tracy. You submitted 3 questions. One more, and we'll be passing the Motzi. All right, here we go. Little humor for Jesse over there. Jesse, you caught that one, didn't you? Yeah, I thought he would. You're in the City Club, Don. You got to put up with some of that crap that I put out there. Well, I will just pick out one of them from Tracy. Is there a plan to reevaluate the high school selective? Well, we did that one already. Did that one already? Oh, here you go. Do you think that eliminating smaller social promotions will reduce the high school dropout rate? Too many students are in high school and are functioning at an elementary level.
Yeah, I think that's again a problem that's everybody's facing across the nation. The issue is not one for me, and I've evolved from this, of social promotion. The issue is, what do you do with the child while the child is there? How do you reach that child's need? And we don't do that often. We kind of have prescribed curriculums that are designated for grade levels or age levels, rather than to say, we failed that youngster. The youngster didn't fail. We failed him if he's, in high school and reading at a 4th grade level. So the question then becomes, what do we do more thoroughly and thoughtfully when we hear not only from our assessments of children, but from our teachers in terms of what the intervention is needed to get that child on track? And that is at the core, a part of our instructional strategy and program.
First, let me announce we have Andrea Zopp. Where are you, Andrea? Member of the Board of Education. There she is, over there. Give her a hand. Rosanna Ender. Where are you, Rosanna? I love where you work. University of Chicago Crime Lab. Mr. Vitale, I want you to take note of this. How is CPS involving the Chicago Police Department in planning for school closures, given the safety implications of such actions? That's a very good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's also at the impetus of our commission. We were, Jay Dean, who's here, who leads our safety and security, we're very well aware that there are these, what I call these invisible lines in the community, where gang activity, if you're not from the community, you're not one of the kids, you may not even know that you are on the wrong side of the street, and you can just cross the street. That's a reality not only in Chicago, but across the country. The issue, therefore, becomes, as one takes a look at building utilization, are we being thoughtful in partnership with this police department? Are we being thoughtful with CPS? But equally, are we being thoughtful by asking parents and kids the kinds of questions? And lastly, a member of our commission is the former superintendent of police for Chicago.
This is from Kathy Miller. Your predecessor was working on online programs as a way to expand the learning hours for pupils. What are your thoughts in this area?
So anytime my grandchildren come to play the Wii and they go down to the family room, you have to deprogram something. You have to do little things with buttons and handles. I'm technologically not sophisticated, okay. And he does that thing, and then I say, could you put it back on cable channel? And he does other things. He's been doing this since he was like 4 or 5. My point is, children are wired differently. They are technologically far more sophisticated than we who work and teach them, or who are grandmas, know. Therefore, it's something that we can't dodge. It's something that needs to be integrated in the way in which we teach children. It needs to be used as a tool to access more rapidly knowledge for kids, to get kids on point. It's going to be a part of our future, and so we obviously are embracing it.
For the record, we have like 5 or 6 questions dealing with the tier issue, and she's answered that, but obviously that's a really important question. A number of people have questions on that, so no disrespect, but we've answered that one. We have a lot of other questions in different areas. Here we go. Adina, it rhymes with Athena. Linker, is that right? Where are you? All right. By the way, very good handwriting. Children bring numerous, often hidden stresses to the classroom. Often symptoms of unmanaged stress play out as inappropriate behavior. You can answer this one in 25 words or less. How will CPS address building social and emotional competencies in teachers and their school staff? That's enough.
Yeah, it's a two-pronged issue. Number one, teachers have been dealing with this since Adam. I mean, it's always been an issue. It's not prevalent because of the children in Chicago or whatever. The social and emotional well-being of children is an is factor. And a part of what we need to absolutely do is to ensure that our teachers who are working with our children and our principals and everybody else in the building has a level of professional development opportunity to be able to address that issue in a real and meaningful way. Secondly, I do believe, and I think some of the preliminary data is and have asked our people to gather it, when children have an opportunity to have the arts as an integral part of their program, when children understand that theater and painting and you get a kiln and you do things that are creative, that mitigates what you're referencing, I believe what you're referencing. And then the second piece is children need recess. I mean, that really wasn't like, they need recess. So we have a longer school day where we're providing arts and opportunities for recess. And we know that children who are able to get that kind of energy out come back a little bit like zoned and ready to refocus. And so that's one part of the strategy, our full school day, recess, arts. We'll get better at making it richer next year and each year thereafter. And then providing the kind of professional development that all of the people who interact with our adults need to understand that and to be able to use all the resources around them to support children.
We have two more questions because we want to, as always, we want to leave on time, but saved a couple for last. Barbara, you've been kind of sliding through here. We're going a little uphill with this one. Dr. Teresa, is that Garate? Close enough? Good. Newman Family Services. Over the last several years, the achievement gap between some subgroups has become smaller. However, the achievement gap between students with disabilities and without disabilities has grown. How do you intend to address the widening gap?
I just had a conversation with a colleague when I came in. Christina, where are you? Yeah. Two things. One, there's a high correlation, as you well know, between, and I did reference in my remarks, the gap between African American and Latino children, particularly African American Latino male children. High correlation between those children, the gap, and those children who are relegated to special education, often when they don't need to be. This is not a learning piece there, there's something else. So two things to address that. One, we are peeling back, and it happened long before I accepted this position as the CEO, but we've been peeling back this onion of special education and special needs. It started for me during contract negotiations where there was an awful lot shared that I totally did not realize, and it is valid and true. And the only thing that we can do now is to reverse our trend of failure and reverse our trend of ignoring what was happening, and to begin to deep dive into what's going on in our special needs, with our special needs children throughout all of our schools, and remediate. I hate that word generally, but we've got to take a step back and make the necessary changes so that our children will not have that gap. Because I don't believe that they just, I go with that God-given gray matter. Many of our children have been misplaced. So how do we enter into the world of special education, clean it out, if you will, and then figure out what are the steps that we need to do to make teaching and the services required on the IP more beneficial for children, which then I firmly believe closes the gap significantly.
The final question, it had to come. I don't want to disappoint you. From Mary Bowler, Erie Elementary Charter School. Please comment on how you see the growth of charter schools in your vision of school change in Chicago.
Sure. I thought the question, when he thought it was going to be hard, I thought it was going to be about my tenure. Like, are you going to stay? So look, I've had this, and please forgive me, probably shouldn't want to end sounding like this, but I'm going to sound like this. I suppose that this conversation for me began in 1996, 97, 98, when I was in Cleveland. I authorized the first 3 charter schools in Cleveland. I am a little tired of that discussion, and it's not one that I intend to engage in again, so I'm being just respectful. What I believe firmly, and you can call it whatever you want, it really doesn't matter to me, I believe that we've not defined quality. So all I want to do is figure out, with the people who are most responsive and the people who are closest to this work, what do we define as quality? Does it mean blah, 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 blah? So you could go to a Montessori school Those of you who know Montessori schools, you go there and you look at that, what happens in that classroom, and you go to a traditional school where children are in little rows, you go to a KIPP school, you look there, you go wherever, you can see different models of quality. I don't want to be stuck in that label. And I'm too old, and I'm going to do what I want. I will not be stuck in the label. I am looking at quality. So I'm open to anything that's going to bring quality. And I'm open to that discussion when it brings quality to all of our children and not just some.
All around. We got some funny